Hey there, Starseeds! Welcome to Beyond the Cosmic Table. We're a group of friends from different cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs. We gather around our table and initiate honest and open conversations on how energy and frequencies influence what we create around us. By expanding awareness, we're able to journey with practical guidance leading to our highest awareness and conscious living. So, take a seat and join us at our table. If you're new to crystals and want to learn more, this episode is for you. Ebby chats with Ileana of Everyday Crystal Magic all about the basics of crystals, crystal grids, sacred geometry, and how to successfully work with these sacred beings to help make meaningful changes in your life.
Hi, as Kim said, I'm Ebby, and I'm here with Ileana of Everyday Crystal Magic. Ileana, what are we talking about today?
Hi, Abby and Kim. Happy to be here at the table again to talk to this subject about crystal grids and sacred geometry, because it's one of those hot topics again in crystal work and in crystal therapy. So I'm here to answer any questions you have and offer my perspective in crystals and these things, which is kind of a slightly different of what is out there, because as we all know, and our audience also know, we look at a larger perspective and we don't look at what we do here, each one of us at the table, at something that is a niche to be in a certain way. It's just a piece in all the holistic components.
That is so true. That is so true. It's like we all do our thing, but it's like we upgraded it or we polished it up in some way. I love that Diane self-identifies as a modern shaman. So I really like how she brought that to the table, and that made us all look at how we're doing our own modalities. So true.
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I like the most, because we're doing this eclectic blend. And shaman is like an old school term, and people have still these ideas that shamans are going to be living in isolation. For instance, just to mention one of the old paradigms, living in isolation and doing weird stuff. And Diane is an accountant. For those in our audience that who do not know that, so it's a modern day shaman indeed.
Exactly. And because of that, we do things a lot more. Well, it seems, what's the difference in your opinion? Like the way you do crystals and the way, they were done. What is the twist with your style? What have you been bringing to the grid that's so different?
Well, the first thing is, my view about crystals is crystal is not the replacement of the religious icon. So whatever was the religion or the belief, call it Christianity in the different forms of Islam, the crystal is not going to replace that. The crystal is not something that we take and we boss around. The crystal is a living shape. And when we invite a crystal to our lives, or a crystal invite us to be part of a co-creation, we need to understand it as it is. That is an autonomous being, first and foremost. The crystal is an autonomous being. We have to respect it. We have to get to understand how we can co-create, as opposed to, boom, I'm going to program this crystal to bring me my twin flame or the love of my life, and that crystal is going to work until it's done. Sorry to disappoint many out there. It doesn't. Nothing, and we know about manifesting, nothing works like that. This is a co-creation, and we have to be both the crystal or crystals and us, a collaborative component. Now, when we get into the topic of the crystal grids that people are so crazy about, with all the reason, I'll tell you, yes, people have to be crazy about crystal grids because they're captivating. The beauty and it brings out the creative aspect in every one of us, no matter how boring, quote unquote, as persons we are. when we start playing with these elements and looking at the shapes and the forms, yes, it's fascinating. It attracts attention and is an extraordinary manifestation tool when we truly understand it. But I want to say, even when people are studying, putting together their grids, and they might think they don't work, they're alive and running, and they take on an evolution of its own. And that's probably going to your first question. That's another different take from many teachers and masters in crystals. They said, no, you activate a grid, and then when you activate it, it's done. I feel that my grids evolve and take a life of its own. But going back to the beginner, the first thing that crystal grids do as a subset of sacred geometry is they start changing your brain, and they start changing your perception of space and components and patterns. So there's a learning process that is happening at a very unconscious, subconscious level inside the individual when they start working or learning or playing with sacred geometry. So that's what's so fascinating. And most of the time, people don't even know that this is happening.
That is true. That is true. How many times do you get a call or a text saying, I haven't been able to sleep? And then you find out that they have all these crystals around their bedrooms, and really charging up the energy of that space. Yeah. Another thing, and what else? We were also talking about the fact that, like what you said, we expect the crystal to take on this job, which isn't necessarily out of the ordinary. But when we hear people say, this crystal isn't working, we're not recognizing that our energy isn't at the vibration that's matching up with the crystal. So it's like spark plugs, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's where our energy is, because all there is energy. And I think our audience understands that. And there has to be a matching of the energies. That's what we call the alignment. And until that alignment takes place, crystals is the same thing. They are probably the only tweak here. I suppose when you're dealing with your peers, as in human beings, is that you have that physical communication that lets you know where we are, either aligned or misaligned. But in the crystal, you have to train yourself to understand the subtle energies. And one thing the crystal is not going to do is coming down for you. The crystal is perfect, and it has an operational frequency, and the human needs to build up to it. Until that gap is closed, you're going to find that dissonance, that I can't sleep, this thing is not working, this crystal is broken, or this crystal is depleted. That's the different ways that we have that energy gap. And some crystals have energies that are subtle, others are pretty intense. And that's the beauty of these creatures. You can pick different crystals in your journey because each one is going to have a frequency that you can start tuning into and then upgrade to the next one. Case in point, the jaspers have this wonderful energy that is so nurturing. Any jasper, and they're so abundant, and they're gonna work at your pace, and they're gonna take you from one point to the other. And then in your journey, you have to recognize what I'm gonna work with next. It's like any stages of learning. So I want to do some rewiring of the brain and start opening and accepting the term magic. But this is a natural process that we need to work through, understand this energy, and start building up and raising our frequency.
I know you have this on your website, how to start a grid and how to put it together. And I love the details, how you make it so simple for those of us who are not proficient. But because I remember doing a grid quite a while ago, a few years ago. It was like the first grid you were teaching me. In fact, I think you taught me how to do 2 or 3. And I love it. I love the beauty. The beauty of it is so nice. The energy of it is so nice. So what do you think people are seeking now?
Let's take beauty, because beauty is not superficial.
Mm.
Um, in the sacred geometry, the beauty comes from the order, the frequency, and the harmony. That's how I see beauty, and people will always be drawn to the crystals, to the crystal grids, because of the beauty. People are still seeking for the power of manifestation. That hasn't changed. And maybe what is newest is that there's more information out there. It's easier to learn these things than it was before, because there are many light workers out there, many people that are doing what we're doing here at the table and sharing this knowledge. And there's also an acceleration
Mhm.
that is driving people to seek these high frequency tools and building up to that. So in that sense, people are still kind of looking the same. I think that there's a component that they're more eager to learn rather than, oh, just tell me how it is done.
Right. Yes. Yes.
So there's an interest in learning and exploring other things. Like I said, you get into the sacred geometry, and you come in for the beauty, and then you start seeing how you start changing, because you start learning patterns or picking up patterns quickly. And all of a sudden, your perception of the space, like the physicality of the space, is different. Your mind is more awake and more open to ideas. One exercise I would like to share with the audience is just any day, at any moment, most of us have accounts in Pinterest or any of these visual searchers, and pick any sacred geometry slideshow and start looking at it. Or look at the coloring books with the mandalas, another very important pattern in sacred
Uh-huh.
geometry,
Right.
and see what happens half an hour on an hour later after you spend some time browsing these patterns. Something is going to happen in terms of ideas. You're going to get some thoughts, some inspirations, because sacred geometry is creation, and we're here to create. That's why people ultimately is drawn to the sacred geometry. So just for fun, try the experiment of looking at patterns and see what happens in the next few hours to the next day.
How do you get people, or how do you help them? Like, for instance, me, I love sacred geometry, and I do know a lot about angles and things like that as an astrologer. But I gotta say, it wasn't it like I thought you were gonna beat me at one point as you were trying to teach me some of these things. For some reason, I just couldn't grasp it. So what about those who are a little intimidated by that term, geometry and that and such?
That's the part that we get into nature and looking. I think it's a combination of, first of all, the preconceived idea that this is difficult.
Right, right.
So
Because
that's
after
the
we
first
were
thing.
done, I was really happy, and I'm like, man, I made that too hard on myself because it wasn't.
Yeah, that's the first thing. It's not difficult, but it takes observation, and think about contemplation. I mean, difficult meditation is difficult, if you ask
True.
me.
Yeah.
So when you think about that, all it takes is you get captivated by the beauty and the harmony, and observe. It's just observation, and you slowly get into it and start playing and look at the shapes in nature. When you start looking at the shapes in nature, not in paper, because many people try to figure these things out in paper. uh, Look at nature, look around you, because that's that's what the goal is. We need to look around and start identifying, this is how everything is,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
start seeing what we haven't
Yeah.
been able to see before. So that's the first thing is take away the idea that this is difficult, and then observe, and you'll get it. It's just we're not wired to. We're wired for the difficult. That whatever is not difficult is not worth it.
That is true. That
So
is true. Hard work equals, results
success.
and success. True, true. So, like, let's just say, like, for as a card reader, sometimes when someone comes to me with a question, I have to help them redesign the question.
Yes.
Instead of where is my soulmate, how about we rephrase that and look more towards what do I need to do for myself in order to attract a healthy relationship, which is a lot more easier than, where am I going to find them, when am I going to find them, because those questions aren't necessarily answering if he's in good shape or not. He or she is in good shape, right? So,
Yes.
how about when your clients come to you and ask you, okay, I want a grid to attract my soulmate?
Mm. Uh, Let that be cards or astrology or crystals. I think you're nail it right there when you said let's rephrase this. Let's reframe. Uh, let's create the conditions.
Right.
Let's
Yes.
create the conditions to align that person. That I don't know if that person is a soulmate. Let's start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because a soulmate can be a sibling, a soulmate can be a
Difficult
child.
and
Correct.
difficult.
And exactly, a soulmate might not be the person you're supposed to be at this moment in time and space,
Mm-hmm.
in this physicality. But yeah, you're right. Let's reframe it. I try to understand what is it that the person is looking and what are the gaps. Because, and I think all in the table, we do this a lot because it's part of our vision. It's not, we're not here like in your episode of Not Your Mother Psychic, when people come with that kind of question. No, just tell me when. Give me a
Yeah.
prediction. Give me a prophecy here, as opposed to why don't we look at the gaps? So in terms of geometry, everything is the geometry. The functionality of our bodies, the functionality of our mind is our geometry. The perfect movement of the planet, the cycles of rain and drought and winter and spring is all the geometry. So looking at us as part of the as above, so below, what is it that we need to fix in our geometry to attract that relationship now? So
True. True.
what is missing in my geometry, and how in my composition as an individual? I mean, the first thing, and it's a rough question, is am I in good company?
True. Yeah. True.
Do I know if I don't like to live with myself, how
Exactly.
somebody
Yeah.
else is gonna live with me? We might be digressing here. This is a topic very easy to go so many ways, but just as an example that this modality is not any different. So what do we have to fix in the way we have grown?
Mm-hmm.
Because one thing that you might remember in my Gridmania monthly sessions is check your geometry, because I know you're learning, but if you have something misaligned, think about a cell that start malforming.
Oh, yes.
So
Yes.
that's what I said. At that level and a macro level is a matter of geometry. So how we started, how we didn't fix ourselves from the base that is creating that absence of manifestation. So
True.
is it a matter of am I not good company? Because if I'm not good company, then let's start with a grid for growth. What is the area that we need to grow? And then if the target or the goal is growth, there are several things. We can do a fruit of life
Mm-hmm.
or a flower of life if we want something bigger. But sometimes talking about building up slowly, sometimes we need to start with a seed of life. This is something that we need to plant the seed, because you cannot go to the backyard and cut flowers if nothing has been planted.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's let's start building with this pattern. Sometimes it's not a grid, it's a layout.
Oh,
Start in the most basic forms of geometry, plain geometry, like, you need some grounding and some structure. So let's start with the shape of the square. What is your structure?
true.
Because if you don't fix your structure of your foundations, nothing that you are going to build is going to stay.
Yes.
So those are examples of how I tell people to visualize fixing our geometry. And they're very 3D, but for somebody who's starting,
You
they
got to
work.
start somewhere. You got to start somewhere.
Absolutely. For people like, let's see, be on a relationship, they're working on certain projects. Well, let's start with a fruit of life, because you want to take this to a mature product. So let's work with the fruit of life, sacred geometry patterns, and then let's work with crystals, because in sacred geometry and crystal grids, you have what is the pattern that is gonna better represent what you want to manifest, and then the selection of the crystals. What kind of crystals are better aligned
Well,
with
that's
that?
the fun part. That I
That is
find
the fun.
has been so much fun to select and to have the assortment of the small ones, the pointers, and to have, so that they fit. Now, if somebody wants to, where's a good, I know you can look all these things up online, but in order to direct people to your website, because I love the information you provide us there. I love how simple you make it. Your YouTube is wonderful. And you know what? The thing with you is every time I click on your YouTube, I have to see what you're wearing. I have to see what necklace or whatever. So can you, my eyes are like going right to that.
Oh my
What,
God.
what is that? It's gorgeous.
This is it's a 3-string, and the artist is from here, from Illinois, from Naperville, Rita Crawford, Savannah Jewelry. And this is clear quartz,
Mhm.
amethyst, and carnelian in the orange.
Ah,
It's a nice array, because this is a very like summer, because of the colors, but actually it's getting pretty hot right now, uh, because you have the combination of the quartz and the amethyst, very high frequency. But the orange of the carnelian is this, that pop of freshness and
yeah.
nice
It
summer springy energy.
it looks like
Yeah.
we called each other and said, "Okay, go with orange."
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the orange energy. I just finished editing the video that is coming this Sunday. Is about pick me up crystals, crystal that makes you happy. And the first one is carnelian, that kind of hard candy color. And because carnelian embodies the energy, that vibrancy, that creativity, that self-expression, is an excellent crystal for that purpose. In a grid, if you want to use carnelian for creativity, uh, or for just get out of this whatever's being stagnant,
Mhm.
that you cannot get or come up with new ideas. Carnelian is excellent. So in a crystal grid for creativity, yes, carnelian. Carnelian will be the master crystal, or can be in the outer loop. But the master crystal is the crystal that represents your intention of what is it that you want to manifest.
Mhm.
So carnelian is a good example for creativity. Also, carnelian in the physical aspect is a great crystal for physical health. And for
Ah,
people that are feeling like sluggish, that they need that burst of vitality, carnelian is a good crystal. Also, the red crystals, there are some red crystals that have very high energy, like the red jade. It's a great crystal for physical health and vitality. So that's the fun part, like you said, picking those crystals. And if you feel you don't have enough, go shop for those.
That's even more fun.
Yes, but yes, the master crystal. When we start, once we define the pattern and the purpose, and let's say the gap analysis, and there might be people that might not want to go through the process.
Right.
It's like everything, how many in your decades with clients, how many of them will be a one time because they don't want to go through the work. They don't want to do the self-improvement work and look at the gaps here. Sometimes it's about just identifying the gaps and make the commitment to work on those. But
one way or another, those things are going to return. They're going to swing back around. So either take care of them now or later, whatever works for you. But you will have a repetition of these
or a decade
patterns.
Later.
Oh my God, yes, 9 to 10 years. Now
or a decade later.
Yeah, absolutely. So
and a decade later is even going to be worse, because then the patterns are going to be so ingrained in the behavior and the mind. So.
And not only that, now you've piled more stuff on, so it's even more layers. So everybody out there, it's a good idea. Let's take care of what's in front of us as much as we can become aware of them and work through them. So absolutely. I remember when you worked with me on my crystals, I had to move. So I actually had my grid moved to a friend's house while I was moving and everything. And so, like, what is your concept as far as once you lay out your crystal? Is it like sacred space? You can never move it, or you can never, what? Or are these just man-made rules that we've just put upon ourselves?
That's an excellent question, because I have to tell you, when I was learning, I followed those rules. I was thinking, this crystal is set up here. If I move it, I'm gonna mess it up, and I have to start it over again. And as I was doing more and more and more, I learned. And who gave me and who opened my eyes on this was Melinda from Evolve. I was doing what I call a photo op, because I was taking pictures for the website to show the different grids. And I call it a photo op. These crystals were staged and not activated. And I would say, hey, Melina, she's always very nice. I mean, she is my first crystal mentor ever. So I was showing her the pictures for the photo op, and she was like, oh no, that thing is alive and shooting. No, because I didn't activate it. She was like, no, girl, sorry, that thing is alive. I can feel from the picture, I can feel the energy. So that was another thing that she did for me. It was bring me to this awareness that those man-made rules that you so cleverly explained, no, again, these things are alive. And you start in the physicality, you set them up, but you have to look at what they do extra dimensionally, because crystals are extra dimensional. You might set it up here or there or take it apart, but there's an energy form, there's a thought form that continues. So yes, so now let's talk about the sacredness of this. That's what I call sacred. When you get that awareness, sacred is not, oh, this corner of my house, this 3x3 corner, nobody's coming here, no animals are coming here because it's sacred. No, that's off limits.
Yes. That's true. Yeah.
That's off limits. That makes that space off limits for private. Sacredness is when you understand the life this creation acquires and what they can do across dimensions. That's what is sacred. And when you have that awareness, is when you start treating things or rituals or belief with that respect.
True. It's very self-serving of us to think these crystals were off until we activated them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's like
I love
rude.
it.
So rude.
So rude, condescending, and who do we think we are? Oh my God. Yeah. I love how you brought that up, because no, these beings, and Nikola Tesla explained that in 121 years ago in his, he wrote this essay about the problem of increasing human energy. And one of the topics he starts very early in the writing is food, the supply of food. And he started advocating from being vegetarian, of course. And then he moves into, take for instance, the crystals, that is a perfect life form without the need of nourishment. And he establishes in that document that just because we don't understand that life form, it doesn't make them less of a being that is alive.
True.
So when you start internalizing that, you come with a new respect. You see crystals in a different light, and you make your best to study and co-create with them, as opposed to, here I'm programming this crystal to do my bidding.
Sounds
Again,
right.
sorry, that's not how it works. And maybe that's why my view on this is different, and I teach these things different.
I like that, because we should be getting away from some of these things. We follow these traditions a lot of times without even thinking. We just blindly follow. So excellent point. Is there anything else before we sign off that we didn't touch on that you wanted to make sure that we got?
Yes. One thing is, and again, talking about the traditional client that wants to see results immediately, I would like people to start paying attention on what changes around the environment, what changes in them, and how they start looking at things when they start working with sacred geometry and crystal grids, because that's when the transformation starts.
Yeah.
And yes, you wrote your intention, you feel good about your desire, you think you're aligned, but see everything that is transforming around, because that is part of the creation.
True. Very well put. This has been awesome. I can't wait till we do this again as you go further in and expand out and bring your information to us. But until then, I love seeing you on YouTube. Everybody out there, you've got to tap into Everyday Crystal Magic with Ileana. And I hope you start really sharing who the artists are, the creators behind your jewelry, because I'm not the only one who's noticing how gorgeous your accessories are.
Thank you. I'll put that I'm gonna start writing that in the description box. In the next week, there's gonna be a free mini course on building crystal grids in my Teachable school. As always, my courses and classes in Teachable are offered in both Spanish and English. Sign up for free.
You will see me there. I will be tapping into that. Thank you so much, Ileana.
Thank you, Abby, and bye, girls from the Cosmic Table.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, ladies. Such great information, as always. I've personally worked with Ileana in a few of her workshops, learning more about how crystals work and how to create my own crystal grid to help manifest my desires. Her style of teaching is direct and simple, and the knowledge she shares is priceless. To learn more, visit her website at www.everydaycrystalmagic.com and definitely subscribe to her YouTube channel under the same name. She shares so much knowledge. You'll definitely be on your way to becoming an expert yourself if you keep up with her. Thank you for listening. If you know someone that is interested in the magic of crystals, please share this episode. If you have any questions or comments about crystals or anything else for our group, visit us on Instagram at Beyond the Cosmic Table and comment on the post for this episode. Until next week, have a beautiful week.